Okay, hello, welcome to the 51st episode of the Online Tennis Podcast, a special. We are recording this one. I believe the video is going to go out. I'm not 100% sure, but it's a special for Wimbledon for the draw. We're doing a preview of the men's. Today I am joined here by Damian Kust. I won't leave the long pause that I normally do, Damian. I'll just go straight into introducing you. I think it's easier. How are you doing, Damian?
Yeah, I'm fine. This is going to be very exciting, even though there's no points this year. Clearly, no one cares about that. Obviously, except the Russians and Belarusians that weren't allowed to play. But other than that, the whole tennis world is living this tournament again. So that's great.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, exactly. And as Andy says, I don't think anybody will forget who wins the title in the end. So it's all to play for. It's still very exciting stuff. Today we are going to be running through each quarter. I was going to ask you, Damien, for a wee projected quarterfinalist, maybe a few dark horses. I'm sure Damien has spotted a few of the qualifiers with his plethora of knowledge that are worth noting. And maybe an outright winner as well. I think we'll leave it at that. Just happy to dive into the first 16th, I guess, sure. Damien? Yeah? First 16th of the draw includes Novak Djokovic, I would imagine. He is your pick, probably.
He is, absolutely. I mean, this is a very easy draw for him. I think
yes.
After he was given that nightmare one at Roland Garros, this is kind of fair.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Honestly, that it's hard to find anyone who can really take him down. Like, you could imagine Thanasi Kokinakis peaking for, I don't know, 2 or 3 sets, probably not for 5 of them. You could certainly, I don't know, I mean, from the bottom of this section, because we're only talking about the first 16 players right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you can't really see anyone. I know a lot of people will be like Reilly, Opelka, grass, but clearly this isn't really a good surface for him. I think I made this point somewhat recently. Can't remember where. Hopefully not on a show with you. But that Reilly Opelka would probably love this court that Federer Nadal played on. You know, that one which was half clay, half grass. Like if he could stand on a clay court and serve onto the grass court. Or actually, his kick serve is actually still like a really good weapon on clay. But just that the balls on the opponent's side would be very very low bouncing and very fast. And on his side, they would actually bounce up high enough so that he doesn't have to bend the knees, so that he has a lot of time. So even though he's a former Wimbledon Juniors champion, 2015, I think, I'm not really looking at him as someone who can trouble Djokovic, simply because he's just not that good on grass in the pros, and there's definitely upset potential. I don't know if we want to get into it right now, like if there's any additional questions coming, but Van Rijthoven could certainly take him out. I'm definitely not one to jump to conclusions like after one guy has a breakout run. I'm not expecting Team Van Rijthoven to suddenly beat Medvedev, Fritz, and Auger-Aliassime in every tournament. But with the draw that he's been handed, Delbonis, who's never won a grass court match, he's like 0-13 now, I think.
0-13, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It's incredible. I watched him against Bellier in Mallorca this week, and he's just completely lost. Like he tries to play this aggressive game. He obviously has a pretty big serve, but then he goes to the net a lot on grass, and it's just clearly not his style. It's pretty wild that he's 0-13 though, but Rijthoven has just been given a phenomenal draw to go even to the forefront here. Really, I'm not saying he
chance,
will. Yeah.
Basilashvili definitely beatable. Maybe 37-year-old Rossell makes it through at that. Obviously, Rossell is also beatable. Kecmanovic for Djokovic as well. We did sort of move past him, but Kecmanovic for me doesn't really have the game for grass. He shouldn't really be a threat. I mean, I think Djokovic has got it about as cushy as it gets, probably.
Yeah.
Until the quarters, of course. And we'll move on to the other 16th because his quarterfinal opponent, I'm sure, would be pretty difficult. Damien, interested to hear your thoughts on this quarter first, because I've got a pick, and I swear there's some logic behind it. It's not just fan based as always. It's not just fan logic as always. There is actual sort of tennis analysis behind it, I swear. But go on, who do you have first?
I'm eager to hear it, but yeah, I can understand it because Sinner is not great on grass. Definitely not. He's also not in. Well, he hasn't been too healthy recently. He only played that one match on the loan against Tommy Paul. Was it this week, right?
Yeah, free setter. Yeah,
Yeah.
is he not? He's yet to win a match on grass. Is that right? At tour level.
Tour level, maybe. I mean, he's won some matches on grass, but I can't remember if it was tour level or not. It could be possible. He's 3-7 when I see it. Oh, but that was actually an
Oh, okay.
exhibition,
Oh,
and
right.
a couple qualies matches in Hertogenbosch. Yeah. So he's actually won 0-4 on grass. Yeah, I knew
There you
he
go.
won
Yeah, wow.
some matches, but wasn't sure if it was in on the main tour or not. Anyhow, so I can understand why Sinner isn't really an option. Is there similar things like with Opelka? Not such great form. Again, grass, even though he actually made the semis at Wimbledon. Semis, right? Yeah, semis when he
Yes,
lost
Emmys.
to
Yeah.
Kevin Anderson.
Yep.
That was a pretty easy draw for him. I also don't think this is like a super comfortable surface for him. So if
Yeah.
Murray is healthy, which we sort of, we don't really know that much about it. Like we know that he was saying that this is he's still uncertain a couple of days ago. So who knows? But I actually have another not high seed pick for this one, and it's Oscarotte.
Oh, Otto. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It makes sense. Honestly, the first two rounds for him are very easy.
Yep.
Just
Goya check, Harrison,
yeah,
Clark. Yep.
should just come through that without any real issues. And then
And
against Alcaraz, I really like him to win. I think this is like a
okay.
50-50 matchup, probably. Uh,
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, depending on which form Alcaraz gets into the third round, or if he even does, because I don't know, Struff, if he serves well, could be tough. I wasn't convinced.
Griekspoor as well, second round.
Grigor, yeah, but I haven't really been that convinced. But honestly, we don't really know much about Alcaraz, of course.
Yeah, too
He
many
lost
question
to
marks.
Tiafoe in Hurlingham. I know exhibitions aren't usually that, they aren't great indicators of form, but it is a bit of an issue that he doesn't have much grass court experience. I think in the future he could probably be
Yeah.
a great grass courter simply because that hyper attacking style will be dangerous. Guys like Ramos Vinolas or Norrie, who have given him trouble in recent months, shouldn't really on grass. But
Yeah.
then again, with that, did he play like 2 matches last year, right? At Wimbledon or something more?
Can't remember.
He beat
Maybe made the third.
someone like Uchiyama, lost to Medvedev, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
beat Uchiyama, lost to
that.
Medvedev, exactly. And yeah, I definitely can see Oscar Otte beating him here. Otte is, it's a wonderful late breakthrough story, but he's great on any surface, but obviously on grass, the serve is just a massive force. And
Yeah, I
this is
mean,
my
but he's
pick.
just made a couple of semis, hasn't
Oh
he?
yeah,
Yeah.
played a very decent match in Halle against Medvedev as well. Who did he lose to earlier? Berrettini, maybe? I can't.
Yeah, I think it was
I think it was
Berrettini
Berrettini,
because
right? So I can totally
yeah.
understand the pick that's coming from you, but for me, it's gonna be Oscarotte.
Okay, I like that, and also I like the honesty about Carlos Alcaraz. I think people making him third favourite behind Berrettini is
Yeah,
definitely a
that's too
stretch.
much. That's too much. Yeah.
It's definitely a stretch. I think it probably comes down to spot serving as one of the biggest things. He still doesn't place the serve as well as other people. Kick serve out wide, nowhere near as effective as it would be on a clay court, for example. Sure. And like taking the ball from a little lower than he's used to, that can make a difference. I'm sure obviously he's got all the talent and hand-eye coordination, ball control of anybody else in the world, but at the same time it can mess with your game if you're not used to playing on a grass court and taking the ball from that lower contact point like day in, day out. So 100% Carlos Alcaraz could be out within the first couple of rounds. I definitely agree with that, Damien. And I'm going to stick with Andy Murray as my quarterfinal pick. I'm sure he would get beat by Djokovic in the quarters should he make it that far. But for all us Andy fans, a run to the quarterfinal would be massive. Like that would be an achievement in itself. And yeah, I mean, okay, there's a few tough opponents in there, but yeah, I make Andy. To be honest, like, yeah, Damien, you're scaring me with your Otta pick. Like, I could see a four friends with Otta being a potential banana skin actually, because that could go either way as well. I think if Andy was to come up against him, he's serving well enough, definitely that I mean, obviously, he had a 5-setter against Andy last year, right?
Yep.
So, yeah. Yeah, it's probably one of the most interesting 16s of the draw for sure. I'm very intrigued to see what happens. It's going to be really interesting. Moving on to the next one. This one's really interesting actually as well, because it's pretty tough to pick somebody for certain. It's Casper Ruud's 16th of the draw. Obviously, nobody in their right mind is picking Casper Ruud to get through, having seen him play his last couple of matches in grass. A pretty convincing loss to Peniston. And what was the other one? I can't remember now. Either way, yeah, he's not a grass court player. He said that famous quote
about yesterday to Zizubergs, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he had that famous quote, of course, saying that grass should be for the golf courses, and that's it. Obviously, he said he was joking, but at the same time,
who said that grass is for cows? Because there was also someone like that.
Is that not? Is it Sharapova, or did she say something about a cow on ice? I think.
Can't remember, no. Grass is for
I'm
cows.
Not sure. Yeah.
Ivan Lendl, 1982, actually.
Right. Okay. Cool.
That. I actually thought this was like a more recent player, but maybe they just said the quotes. I don't know.
That's definitely how Ruud feels. I'm pretty sure he's got Ramos Vinolas in the first round. To be fair, obviously the same sort of boat. So who knows? But then, I mean, after that, Humbert, Goffin, I'd make any of these players' favourite over him, to be honest. Anyway, yeah, Ruud's obviously not my pick. My pick was gonna be Alexander Bublik, but who in their right mind, would say that with loads of confidence? But who knows? If he gets through a few rounds, a few dice rolls, certainly his first round against Fucsovic is hard, definitely. Should he survive that though? Carreno Busta, he's got the power to get through him if he's playing well enough. Tiafoe, dangerous all the time probably, but again, could go his way if he's serving well enough and doesn't have a bad day on serve. Humbert, I mean, I'd love to have said Humbert at the start of the year, but obviously his form has fallen off a cliff. But Humbert has got the sort of game that could be amazing on grass if it was going well. That's my dark horse pick if he plays well for a tournament. Bublik is my actual pick for the quarterfinal. What do you think?
As you said, this is one of the most interesting sections, but also one of the ones where most matches won't really be watchable. There's so many clay specialists, or maybe guys who simply don't really play that well on grass. I actually think there are people who could pick Ruud here, and they wouldn't really be super wrong, because honestly, the section is just so weak that Ruud could go through it.
Yeah, I think Goffin could be hard.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there are a couple of guys like Humbert playing well is obviously probably the favorite against Ruud. Right now he wouldn't be because of the form, but when playing well, he's definitely the favorite against Ruud on grass. Goffin, as you said, Taro Daniel maybe even with the serve improvements. Baez played pretty well this week, which was a bit of a surprise. For old school grass court tennis watchers, I definitely recommend Andrea Vavasori against Tiafoe, because he made 116 net approaches in the final qualifying round.
Really wow. Wild. Yeah. Is Vavasori a serving volleyer through and through, Damien?
Through, I wouldn't say. He generally he just played a lot of doubles. Like last year, there were even a few months when he chose not to play singles at all. He only focused on his doubles career, and obviously he's a great volleyer also because of that. But then started playing again and just outperformed all his previous results. But lots of them were on clay, and he definitely wasn't serving volleying on every single point there. Here on grass, he's actually probably going to do it a lot. He's not not Cressy, not Antoine Bellier but definitely one of the guys on tour that use it the most. I don't know if he has an actual chance against Tiafoe, but it will for sure be fun to watch. I kind of just want to go for the same pick that you did. In recent weeks, Bublik has actually looked quite a bit more interested, invested, motivated than usual. Even though maybe his results haven't really, there hasn't been like a semi-final, a final, but I feel like his quality was pretty high, and in this section, literally, he can just beat anyone if he's actually willing to. Humbert is a dark horse pick that I really like, because if he plays well, if he somehow finds some groove, then this is a perfect section for him to even reach the quarters, or for Bublik, because this really is very weak. I didn't really look at previous year's draws, but I can't really remember a section that was so filled with either clay courters or guys who don't have much experience on grass, or guys who have
Yeah.
question marks like Goffin, Humbert. Bublik always has a question mark above his head in terms of the mentality. So this is really wild. I think if I have to name one, I'm also gonna say Bublik, but I really wouldn't be surprised with Humbert or Goffin, as you said.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you saying that about being interested, because normally I'd sort of shy away from supporting a player getting angry on court, sort of having a go at themselves. And obviously, it turns out he said a lot of awful things in Russian in his loss to Andy Murray a few weeks ago. However, I actually would say for somebody like Bublik to see him genuinely quite annoyed he was losing the match, obviously keen to win the match for once, I think that's quite a good sign. I agree. He's actually quite keen to perform well on grass. So I don't know, maybe he goes in with a bit of pressure and that actually negatively affects him, but hopefully it works the other way around and sort of sparks him into a few wins. Because, Bublik in full flow, we've not seen it for a wee while, but Bublik in full flow is dangerous. So yeah, I'm happy with my pick as well. I think Damian, definitely. Moving on to the next one, I think the obvious pick would be Hubert Hurkacz. I imagine you'll have went for Hubert Hurkacz as well. You can stop me if I'm wrong. But there are still a few interesting things within this 16th for sure. Have you gone for Hubert Hurkacz?
I think so. Yeah, I mean the first round is pretty tough. Just thinking of potentially Davidovich Fokina being healthy, because we don't really know that, but he's dangerous. Definitely, that's not the easiest first round draw, even though someone of Hurkacz's stature on grass after the Halle title should still clean it up somewhat easily. Mannarino is obviously a little bit of a tricky opponent there. Definitely not someone Hurkacz enjoys playing. And fourth round, also not that easy. Norrie or Dimitrov, the guys actually faced in Queen's Cup at round one, and it's very possible that they're gonna play again here in the third. So I think there are definitely some obstacles here for Hurkacz, but still, I don't really know how I would justify not going for him here. So I think I have to.
Yeah, Mannarino. It was Mannarino beat Hurkacz at the Australian Open, right? Or have I got that? Yeah, I thought that. Yeah. So obviously a terrible game to match up against on grass. His backhand's going into Mannarino's. Well, either of Mannarino's strokes are probably pretty horrible to deal with on grass, to be honest. And Davidovich Fokina, he is, everybody always says, Wimbledon junior champion, but honestly, I think just by being miles better than the rest of the field at that point, that was the reason for him winning that. He's not really got the game to be amazing on grass for me. His serve leaves so much to be desired. I think Hurkacz will have plenty of chances to break, and really, if he's playing like he did in Halle, he could go the first 4 rounds without getting broken if he's playing well enough. He was serving amazingly in Halle to the point where I was just completely blown away. My hype for Hurkacz has risen to the point of just craziness now, because the way he played against Medvedev was amazing. I thought every part of his game was brilliant. I don't know if that was just a one-off, or the way Craig Boynton looked every single time Hurkacz, every single time the camera panned to him, he was beaming, he was smiling ear to ear, he was incredibly happy with what we'd seen. I think he was doing everything perfectly. And he was doing that throughout the whole tournament against Kyrgios as well. Craig Boynton looked incredibly happy. I'm very, very, very positive about Hurkacz's chances. I think he'll make it to the semis at least, and he would have a chance against Djokovic compared to other players.
Pretty much really before the Medvedev final, I think everyone had Hurkacz as a bottom tier top 10 favorite, and then he suddenly jumped up in everyone's rankings to third or fourth, probably depending on where you have Nadal. And it's just crazy, but probably justified. I'm definitely a member of that church as well.
Second half of the draw. First 16th of that part of the draw, we have got Berrettini. I believe that's probably your pick. But again, loads of interesting stuff there. Berrettini against Garin should be fine, definitely. And a third round, however, Brooksby's really not in form at all and has surprised me with some of his results recently. But Brooksby or Kukushkin, the two of them have mean backhands on grass. There's a chance, because Berrettini's backhand is still exploitable, that there's a maybe a slip up chance there?
I mean,
or do you just think he's
it's
serving way
way
too well?
less exposable on grass courts though, because he has that killer slice. He can also hide it so well just by using these short attacking patterns that he's mastered so well. The simplicity of his game is probably what stops him from being, I don't know, top three player of from beating Djokovic and Nadal on a regular basis. But still, on grass, it doesn't really matter. That the simplicity is somewhat rewarded there. I don't really see him losing to anyone here, at least not in the first 3 rounds. I think fourth is where some issues probably could start. Kukushkin is a similar case to like you mentioned Manarino. I mean, their strokes are just so uncomfortable, but still, him at this stage of his career, especially beating Berrettini in a best of 5 seems kind of impossible. Ben Bonzi is pretty dangerous, of course. Is he still in? I think he's still in the tournament, right? Or did he lose? No, he's obviously playing Tsitsipas today in the semis at Mallorca.
It's not over yet.
A rematch as well, because he lost to him in 3 last week.
Yeah, so he did.
So Bonzi is pretty dangerous as well. Like the whole rise that he's had was mostly based on how much his serve has improved. So grass suits that very well.
Yeah.
A pretty flat backhand as well. Maybe a different one to Kukushkin, as it's not that uncomfortable, not that low bouncing, but still a very good grass court weapon. Mm-hmm. Wessler potentially second round. That's also dangerous just because of the serves. But I imagine Berrettini is playing far too well for him to have any chance of losing at least in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
I could see it going to tie breaks with Wessler, but the inconsistency of the Swiss's game is probably just going to kill him at some point in this match.
Yeah, I'd have said Minaur as well for me. Okay, on a hard court maybe could have been dangerous, but I just think Berrettini's serves just a little too big for Minaur's style of return to have as big an effect as it would on a hard court. I just think like when you're serving 135 miles an hour, it's very difficult for you to stand on the baseline, whoever you are, and direct it with any sort of rhythm. We saw that against Andy Murray, of course, in Stuttgart. They're not exactly the same kind of returners, but they do both like to step in and take it early. So I don't think Minaur is going to be a problem. And then Schwartzman, I mean, that's the only other seed that people see, but really that Schwartzman shouldn't be a threat at all on grass for me. Coric, maybe? I don't know. Coric is like a kind of sleeping dark horse that nobody's really been talking about. I don't know, like he's not got that bad a part of the draw. I could see him in the 4th round, and if he's healthy.
I can't. I mean, he's healthy and has just played phenomenally well to win in Parma, but I don't really think he's that great on grass. Obviously, I generally strongly believe that someone that in the 4th round here there should be either the Minaur or the winner of Bergs Draper. Like I see a sort of an off chance for Lucas Klein, maybe, if he just serves extremely well. He's definitely got a big game that's maybe he doesn't have the grass court experience because he only played Mallorca last year, qualified and made the 2nd round, and then Wimbledon here. Obviously qualified, beat Seppi in the 3rd round, which was a pretty awesome win.
Yeah.
But I think the Minaur or the winner of Bergs Draper is a very strong candidate to go to the 4th round.
Yeah.
Who that will be of Bergs Draper is an absolute 50-50 for me, probably. Maybe with a slight edge to Jag, but then again, he's playing he's having a long week now in Eastbourne, so maybe that gives a little bit of an edge to Bergs instead. I just really don't want to pick out of this, but obviously both guys are extremely good on grass.
And it's quite.
Bergs just won Ilkley with the wild card.
Yeah.
He also defeated Ruud in that exo, which maybe doesn't matter that much, but he turned out to be just an incredibly natural player on the surface. He didn't play on it before this year. He only played Hertogenbosch qualies and then won Ilkley. He only had a few matches in the juniors on it as well.
Yeah.
And Draper, of course, has much more practice on grass, and clearly this is going to be not the only surface he's going to succeed in, because obviously hard and indoor hard especially should be great for him too. But they're just both. This is actually going to be one of the most. I'm assuming most people won't exactly. This isn't the matchup that stands out to most viewers when they look at the draw, but it actually should. Like this is going to be a blockbuster.
Yeah. I say like for two unseeded players, they've been given pretty tough respective opponents. I've got to say, like two of the most informed unseeded players.
Both
on
had
grass.
serious upset potential. Like give them Schwartzman, for example. Draper has just defeated him.
Yeah, exactly.
Berrettini against Schwartzman. I'm also taking Zizou. Like there would be a lot of chance for them to upset high seeds.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Minaur is actually upsettable for either of them. He could be, but I think either would be a slight underdog probably. But either one of these three, I think, has a very good chance to reach the fourth round and give Berrettini his first. His
challenge.
First real obstacle for his first real challenge. Yeah.
But Berrettini to make the quarters, we are both thinking.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, everyone is going to pick Berrettini here, obviously.
Of course. Next one's a little bit more interesting. 16th with Tsitsipas, Shapovalov, Bautista, Agut, Krajinovic. For me, my pick is got to be Kyrgios, I think. Kyrgios has got a pretty, Paul Jubb, pretty easy first round. Krajinovic as well. Okay, Krajinovic made the Queen's final, but he was loved for before going into Queen's. I don't think he's a natural grass quarter, is all I'm saying. Kyrgios should get through that. I would make him the favourite against Tsitsipas, I think, in the third round. I think he was the favourite, actually, when he played a few weeks ago, and he did come through that in 3 sets. I mean, fourth round as well against Shapovalov, who's, I don't know what's happened to Shapovalov recently, but if there was somewhere he was going to pick up his form again, it would probably be here. At the same time, you've got to count him out, and then Bautista, who probably has got more of a chance of getting through, to be honest. That's the first point where I'd be like, okay, alarm bells for Kyrgios, but other than that, he's got to be my pick to get to the quarter, I think, the way he's playing.
I understand it. I think this is probably... maybe the results aren't going to show it just yet. I believe you could easily argue for 2016 or 2017, but the 2022 version of Nick Kyrgios has been the strongest he's looked for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's recency bias, who knows, but he's just avoided any bad losses, generally only had mental breakdowns against good players when he was already down, like the matches against Nadal or Murray. Anyhow, I don't know how serious that Mallorca withdrawal is.
Of course, yeah.
Mallorca, is it?
Yeah, Mallorca. It was Mallorca.
I constantly mix up Mallorca and Eastbourne. Like these tournaments are just the same for me. It's grass, and I have to think of which players are where.
Yeah.
But anyhow, I don't know how serious that is. It's a little maybe worrying that he played such a tough one against Jera in the opening round, but because that really shouldn't happen. But as you said, I really like the first 2 rounds for him here. Then he plays Tsitsipas, which could go either way, but if he's healthy, if he's motivated, I also like Kyrgios to win it. I think Bautista Agut is probably the tougher opponent for him as well.
Yeah.
I'm definitely expecting the Spaniard to go to the 4th round here. We'll see how his week in Mallorca finishes. I mean, he's playing Balear in the semis, of course. But either way, he shouldn't really be too gassed ahead of this, especially as he didn't play the match against Kyrgios. Didn't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't have to compete. So
comfortable
I really
against
like Bautista Agut to. Yeah, I really like Bautista Agut to make the 4th round here, and I obviously think that the winner of Kyrgios Tsitsipas makes the 4th round. I'd also give the edge to Nick, but maybe just because I'm not sure if I trust that that Kyrgios' both body and mind aren't fragile.
Yeah,
like I they are, and I'm not sure if in the best of 5 format it's very realistic for him to win the tournament or go to the semis. And maybe just because going through Tsitsipas and Bautista Agut in a row seems quite tough, I'm going to go with Roberto Bautista Agut as my pick. Okay. He's obviously an awesome player on grass as well, former Wimbledon semi-finalist. And
yeah, it's tough to call that one, but just based on the fact Kyrgios can look not unplayable. I mean, the way he played in Halle was amazing. I think that level would be enough to beat RBA. However, it's quite a tough one. I'm going to stick with Kyrgios, but I'm not 100% sure about that, Damien, for sure. Next one, we've got, this one's Tough. This one is tough because I really wanted. It's tough to stomach as well because I really wanted Auger-Aliassime to do well, and now I really don't know. It's one of the toughest draws I've seen for a while for one of the players I want to do well for sure. Maxime Cressy in the first round. Like who knows? Like that could go either way for sure. Like if Auger-Aliassime comes through that, he'll be counting his lucky stars for sure. Jack Sock could come out swinging. He's been playing quite well on grass, right? Like you'll know better than most.
Yeah,
Like
he was 1 point away from not having to
yeah,
qualify in Ilkley. Also made the semis at Nottingham.
took
Only
the
lost
scenic
to
route.
Dan Evans. So
Yeah,
lost to Evans and Bergs. Made the qualies. Made it through the qualies without losing a set. Actually, his Wimbledon records aren't that great as I would expect. Obviously, I'm talking about singles because in doubles he won it twice. But I think he's like 4-5 at Wimbledon historically, which is pretty weird. But obviously, with the shot making potential and how well he serves, how good his forehand is, net play as well. I mean, everything in his game is very well suited to the surface, and form in recent weeks has been excellent, definitely.
yeah. And then Dan Evans is the third round if he's made it for the first two. Dan Evans won't be that easy. Like, Dan just got beat by Cressy, but again, Cressy, you coin toss for most players a lot of the time. Like Dan will be tough, definitely. Like he's got the game to make Auger-Aliassime feel very uncomfortable. And there's been plenty of times, Auger-Aliassime is making it deep in Grand Slams, but he's had to come through big tests early on, and that could be one test too many if he's had to survive Cressy, and then maybe Jack Sock gives him a difficult game. First 3 rounds, if he gets through those, his reward would be Taylor Fritz. I'd actually feel more confident about Taylor Fritz than Cressy or Dan Evans, to be honest. So if he makes it that far, it's really difficult for me to back Auger-Aliassime, to be honest. Maybe I'd have to back Cressy.
Quite bold, mostly as you said. So many matches of Cressy are actually like a 50-50 thing. He's playing Draper today, right?
Jack Draper. Yeah.
So he's still in Eastbourne, of course. Auger-Aliassime has a super tough draw. Going through Cressy, then Sock, or maybe even Zapata Miralles, who's quite competent on grass, but still you'd expect Sock to win it.
Yeah.
And then Evans potentially in the first 3 rounds is just absolutely brutal. And that's what actually makes me kind of want to go for Fritz, because he's got a much easier draw. Yeah, and he's just going to have a lot of time to play himself into form. He had some knee issues recently, like the match against Draper at Queen's Club, but right now in Eastbourne, he's also still in the draw. He's playing the Minaur in the semis, which is a very, very high quality grass court match for sure. And I just like the first few rounds for him to get in the right groove and just don't feel comfortable picking out of Auger-Aliassime, Cressy, Sock, and then one of them potentially facing Dan. Although it could be Dan, but I was a few times already in the history of his career, I was a little disappointed with Evans at Wimbledon. I don't know if it's some sort of a mental issue or not, but there's been a few moments when you felt like he could do much better than he did. I mean, I'm obviously not saying about the third round not saying that about the third round he played against Roger, because that was sort of unwinnable, especially back then, as Dan probably wasn't as good a player as he is right now.
Yeah.
But the ones against Joao Sousa, was it, and then last year against Korda, they really felt like he should step up, and he looked quite tight playing both of them. And
right.
I don't know, maybe for some reason Wimbledon is just more pressure for him.
Yeah, as a Brit, yeah, definitely could be the case. I think before we do leave this 16th, I think I am going to back Auger-Aliassime. One of the stats I've got in front of me, I think it's quite interesting, and certainly against Cressy, because he will be forced to serve incredibly well from the get-go. You go into a match with Cressy, for certain you're going to have, compared to maybe some other players, you're going to have to cover your serve better than you would have to. He's one of the best in the game at holding his serve, like 100%. And I think a lot of people sort of point to his second serve as a weakness. It's actually pretty effective on grass. It's not got much kick, doesn't do much on clay, but actually he can slide it quite well on a grass court. I don't know if people underrate him on grass. I mean, he got to the quarters last year, but I actually think his game translates very nicely. I mean, I'm surprised. I'm still surprised that he did as well as he did on clay. But again, I think that's because he covered his serve incredibly well, and it should be easier to do on a grass court,
Yeah,
in my opinion.
he's got incredibly good grass court records. Just I don't think the form has been superb. It's just kind of middle of the road for me, and that's why I'm not super confident in him getting through that tough a draw.
I was going to say, is that the loss to Van Rijthoven still in your head? Is that what it is? Or?
Yeah, maybe not necessarily the fact that he lost to Tim, because it's always possible with, as you know, I never really thought that Van Rijthoven had as good a slice as he has, because honestly, you couldn't really see that even in indoor hard events. But with someone who serves very well, you can always have this sort of a loss, but just the way he played in some of these matches against Marcos Giron or Van Rijthoven, the baseline game just looked really shaky. Not sure how much value we also want to assign to the Djokovic loss at Hurlingham, but it was extremely straightforward. I don't know. The form has just been not convincing enough for me to think that he's capable of getting through. Because I was actually talking about his first 3 rounds at first, but if you combine it with Fritz, I mean, Cressy, Sock, Evans, Fritz, that's a nightmare. Even if you gave it to Djokovic, I mean, I wouldn't be thinking that he will lose to one of them, but still, I wouldn't expect him to beat all of them without losing a set, for example.
Oh, for sure.
Auger-Aliassime is obviously not quite at that level.
Definitely, yeah. It's such a shame because I really want him to do well, but yeah, I just think if he does come through even the first round, I mean, he's going to play himself into form basically. And I think if he got to a 4th round with Taylor Fritz, having survived those 3 matches, he'll be playing well. Is basically my logic. I think I'm going to back him, but I'm scared for him. Definitely. Final 16th, Damien. Interesting. This one, I am going to back Rafa. I think purely on the fact that
it's Rafa.
It's Rafa, and I think he'll want this more than he's wanted a slam for a while. I think having won the first 2 slams, he might play it down like it's just tennis. No, he'll say something like that, but in reality, I think he'll really matter. He'll care a lot, definitely, and I think he'll really want to get through that. I mean, first round against Cerundolo, fine. Query, I think he'll survive that for sure. Sonego, probably, or Kudla in the third, definitely you should get through that. I think Cilic or Van de Zandschulp is when it gets tough. I still think he'd come through just based on confidence. Cilic, I don't think. There's upset potential, definitely, and I'm interested to hear if you've picked Cilic. I'm guessing you have gone for Cilic.
Yeah, I did. Honestly, if they get to the 4th round playing as well as I sort of expect them to, so probably Cilic losing like a set against Botic and probably none against McDonald or Sousa Gasquet, and then Nadal maybe losing a set against someone like Sonego, Kudla, Popyrin, just playing somewhat well, then it's pretty much a 50-50 for me. Especially it's actually the beginning of the second week on the grass, but still, I think historically Nadal has been a little more vulnerable to upsets when the grass is still fresh.
Yeah,
like especially when the stretch.
When it plays less like a hard court, I know what you mean.
Especially the stretch that we saw between 2012-15. Obviously Brown, Rosol, Darcy, and Kyrgios. Miller later on. We've also seen that loss to who did he not the loss to, but I mean that even in the years back there were a couple of instances like Philipp Petschner getting him to 5 sets. Like I think the upset potential is there for sure. Cilic is an excellent Grand Slam player. That's something that cannot really be argued. I'm not quite confident that Cilic will get through Van de Zandschulp in the first place, because that's a pretty tough draw. I was certainly very disappointed in Cilic after the loss to Krajinovic. Like that's just something that shouldn't happen to him on grass.
3-3 as well. That was
on grass. It just shouldn't really happen to him. And over the years at Wimbledon, he's also had a few of these very weird losses where he had like the one against Peja was obviously the one that everyone remembers. which was quite really quite something. And last year he was just extremely unlucky drawing into that section of Hurkacz and Medvedev. Obviously, everyone expected him to go really deep after Queens. Was it that year? I think he what did he do?
Was it not? Did he not win Stuttgart?
Stuttgart, yeah, Stuttgart, and then
Yeah.
went deep in the next week, and like everyone thought he was top 3, top 4 favorite for Wimbledon, probably just behind Djokovic and Berrettini.
Yeah,
and
he probably did when he went 2 sets up against Medvedev.
Yeah,
as well.
went 2 sets up and then just didn't play not nearly as well as he did. And obviously there are some mental issues with Cilic. But yeah, if he gets to round 4 in decent shape, I really like him to trouble Rafa. I don't know if it's, a lot of people have suggested to me that, that I'm like a Nadal hater. I don't think it's about that. Not at all. I obviously have a lot of respect for the guy. I love watching him play. But the fact is that the things that he does are sometimes so improbable that in my predictions, I feel like I should go for something else because I just don't see it. But then he does it, and maybe in a way that's even that makes him even more impressive for me. I'm gonna go against
defeats your
him
expectations. Fair enough. Yeah, I Van de Zandschot, I'd love to see him do well, and actually he could beat Cilic. That's why I'm kind of thinking Rafa's definitely getting through to the fourth. Cilic maybe not. That's kind of more why I'm leaning Rafa's side, and I agree. Bit of mental scarring. I don't know if it was a mental issue that made him miss 1,000 overheads against Casper Ruud, but when push comes to shove and he has to beat somebody, well, I mean, he played amazingly against Medvedev, of course, at the French Open, but we'll see. We'll see. I think I just don't. I'm not confident Cilic is definitely getting through, and that's why I'm going for Rafa. I think. Okay, one more thing before we leave. Damien did just remind me that we need to speak about who we think is going to win outright. Damien, who's your pick for an outright winner?
Yeah, I mean, I really dislike going for top seeds. I really dislike going for the obvious answers. So I really want to just go Berrettini.
Oh.
I believe if they meet again, Berrettini and Djokovic, I mean, that last year's match was very close, which I think people don't necessarily mention. Like, I feel like a lot of times it's like Djokovic just ate up everyone at Wimbledon 2021, and that's not really the case. I feel like Matteo was really close to winning this one, maybe extending it to a 5th set. It definitely didn't feel like this was a lopsided affair. And this year, having the experience of losing in a Grand Slam final before, I think he'd be a very live underdog in this one.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I would actually, if they meet in the final, whether that opinion of mine is going to still be, if it's still going to hold up. But I certainly think that Berrettini has a very serious chance of winning this. And I think the edge between if we're talking about the main favorites for the title, I think the edge between Djokovic and Berrettini is so much smaller than the edge between Berrettini and Hurkacz Nadal. Maybe Nadal is debatable, but that's a lot matters on how he'll actually play when he shows up. But just before the tournament, I think Berrettini is closer to Djokovic than he is to Nadal Hurkacz.
Yeah. With what you said in mind, picking somebody like Djokovic would be a little bit more boring. So I will also pick somebody different. Yeah, I'm going to go for Hurkacz. As I say, incredibly hyped after watching him in Halle. My justification, I suppose, is that if he were to play Djokovic in the semi-finals, he'd have a pretty decent chance. He is serving well enough to stave off Djokovic over the course of 5 sets. Well, he could serve well enough is what I mean, to stave off Djokovic. He's actually got better from the baseline for me. Again, it could just be hype, it could just be like amazing tournament, but he will have more chances from the baseline than he should have had in previous meetings with Djokovic. For example, Paris, where it was still very close, went to a match tiebreak, but there were ways Djokovic could sort of boss Hurkacz around from the back of the court. I feel like with the way he's able to approach the net if he needs to nowadays, if he's using his forehand as aggressively as we saw him using it in Halle, 100% he has got a better chance than, I think, Berrettini in the final for me. I think he's got a chance.
The Wimbledon match was pretty close, right? 3 years ago as well. And Hurkacz was definitely not the same caliber of a grass courts player, at least back then. I'm not sure if he's improved that much on clay, probably a lot in terms of the movement, but on grass he was still certainly not as much of a Wimbledon favorite like we perceive him right now. And the first two sets were just really tight. Yeah, I mean, I like it. I would have never said that before Halle. I would definitely have thought of Hurkacz as like a bottom second tier contender, but right now he's really evolved. It seems just on the basis of this one tournament, but it actually makes sense. We'll see if he can back it up.
Yeah, why not? Like the way he was moving forwards, that's the thing. Like if things aren't working from the back of the court, I think he's one of the only guys who has a credible plan B against Djokovic, and it could work. I'm feeling so hyped. It's unreal about Hurkacz. I'm probably going to fall flat on my face when he gets beaten by Davidovich Fokina in the first round.
Davidovich Fokina,
yeah.
He lost to him in a slam before, right? That was US Open, I think.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
I can't remember what the year was. He beat Gojowczyk, I think, and lost to Davidovich Fokina. The recent years are just completely the same for me in my head. So it could have been like 2020, probably.
Wow. Okay, yeah. Ignoring that, Hurkacz to win. Thank you very much for joining me. It was good fun as always, Damien.
Of course.
Thank you for taking some time to join me. If you'd like to catch any of Damien's work, please catch him on Last Word. Follow him on Twitter at Damian Kust, I believe. Yeah, you can follow myself at ontheline_Jack, or you can catch my work at onthelinetennis.uk. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you next time on the On The Line Tennis Podcast. Cheers. Thank you.